Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News focusing on the loss of Air India Flight 171. I'm Geoffrey Thomas and I'm delighted to say joined by my co-host Richard Godfrey, and I think it might be just good afternoon to you, Richard.
Yeah, it just turned midday here, so good evening to you.
Thank you. Viewers, this episode is called CEO Speaks. It's episode 257. There's been considerable discussion about Air India and recent comments by CEO Campbell Wilson. Rajiv Shagun Info says, "Gentlemen, the news just broke. The CEO of Air India has stated there is no flaw in the operations of Air India." He was talking on the report of Air India 171 crash. Also, Padre John Ruffle came in and said, "I'm glad that CEO Air India Campbell Wilson, in my opinion appalling, recent speech has been raised by others. Here's what I've written to G and R, that's Geoffrey and Richard, via email, but I'll post it here instead. Campbell Wilson, the CEO of Air India, is the subject of a number of viewer comments. Dear Richard and Geoffrey, the Chief of Air India has spoken for the first time in months after Air India 171 tragedy, as reported by Reuters. Now, I don't know what the entire speech Campbell Wilson may included, but this report excludes even an ounce of sympathy for the victims or condolences for the many beloved, still grieving family members and friends. Does anyone here have access to the entire speech? I hope I'm misjudging Wilson, although his original speech after the accident appeared to be just a copycat of a speech of another CEO had made regarding an earlier unrelated tragedy. What really struck with me, however, is the report from Reuters itself. We get an indication that the June 12th crash is already being downgraded in the news cycle. Instead of referring to the plane crash in June, Reuters chose the words "after a plane crash in June." Emphasis added. I don't know what the Reuters style book says on such matters, but wording is never arbitrary, and to me it's downplaying the accident as well as the continuing aftermath and controversy of which the news report is silent. Am I being nitpicking? If so, please correct me. I'm pretty sure I can handle the wounds from a friend, yours, John R. And KD's 774, news reports are written by reporters, and it is the reporter and editors who select the final content, not the subject. Other news reports have additional content. You state, now I don't know what the entire speech Campbell Wilson made included, but then continue with an attack on the CEO based on the absence of information in the news report. This is consistent with motivated reasoning and confirmation bias taking over. And responding to all that, Wash Angel comes in and says the words of Air India's CEO and Managing Director Campbell Wilson are nonsense when he cleared all fault from Air India operations, which I presume also means maintenance from the blame for the crash of Flight 171. They have already made up their minds, and Air India is not at fault. The pilots are going to cop it. Story over. And comfortably Nick 1, the reports of the CEO statements quote him as stating the interim report didn't find fault with Air India operations or the airplane. He said they would continue to make improvements and work with the investigators. And Jean Malvez, 985, those who have never experienced the loss of a family member or a close friend in an aircraft crash are not able to understand or to imagine the pain and distress and bring up empathy for those who lost. Even people who saw a crash directly cannot feel what relatives and friends of the aircraft crash victims suffer. An airplane crash has two sides, three even, a human side, an objective material side, and a commercial side. Feelings, facts, and financial interest. Difficult to make a smooth mix of all that. but with a little education and life experience, it should be possible to bring those three sides close to each other, isn't it? And Dr. Doom 71, in reply to KDIS 774, go read the article. He directly said it, and I have read the entire article. Richard, that was a very robust debate on our YouTube channel today.
Yeah, and there's more to it than even those comments. So the key question is, what has Campbell Wilson said? And what I'm about to do is quote him verbatim. And these are all verified quotes from Campbell Wilson. On the 12th of June, the day of the accident, first and most importantly, I would like to express our deep sorrow about this event. This is a difficult day for all of us here at Air India. Our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, their families, and loved ones. I know that there are many questions, and at this stage, I won't be able to answer all of them. I do want to share the information we have at this time. We will continue to share accurate and timely information as soon as we can, but anything we report must be accurate and not speculative. For now, our teams are working around the clock to support passengers, crew, and their family, as well as investigators, however we can. Then on the 20th of June, he said, "Have our aircraft been deemed safe?" The answer, yes. We have completed the additional precautionary checks on our operating fleet of Boeing 787 as requested by the DGCA. We have also, as a matter of abundant precaution, voluntarily decided to continue additional pre-flight checks for the time being. Where there is any doubt, we will not release aircraft of any type for service. We continue to mourn for the lives lost on the AI-171 tragedy and to support those who have been affected. These families are now Tata families. The counseling services, which are confidential and provided by professionals, continue to be available to everyone, and I encourage you to avail of it. On the 14th of July, the preliminary report into the June 12th AI-171 crash has provided both greater clarity and opened additional questions. It is not appropriate for us to comment or speculate. There are many theories, but the accident is under official investigation by the AAIB. We are providing all information requested by the AAIB and are cooperating completely. It is vital that the facts, whatever they may be, are known so that we and the industry at large can learn from them. And then the most recent and the first public speech on the 29th of October 2025, he says, "We're always looking at how we can keep improving. This year will be quite challenging from a business perspective. We're also working with the investigators. And airspace constraints are a challenge to on-time performance." End of quotes. I was asked yesterday by the BBC in London what I thought of the comments by Campbell Wilson. And my answer was that what he said is exactly what I would expect him to say. Have our aircraft been deemed safe? Yes. The preliminary report has opened additional questions. I find that interesting. We're always looking at how we can keep improving. Well, every organization is in continuous improvement. And this year will be quite challenging from a business perspective. I found that interesting. Implies that maybe bookings aren't as expected. But fundamentally, we disagree that Air India's aircraft are safe. And when I was asked yesterday by the BBC, my reply was, what he didn't say is actually much more interesting. He didn't mention that Air India had failed a recent safety compliance audit on 51 counts. He didn't mention the DGCA suspended Air India's chief of flight safety for a month after an audit found that internal reports had been falsified. DGCA has levied financial penalties against Air India for non-compliance of safety and operational regulations on 5 occasions in the last 2 years, with fines up to $125,000. AEISL, the maintenance arm of Air India, has the worst maintenance record of any Boeing 787 operator. Customers are complaining in droves, and there are in-flight videos from Air India passengers of incidents and public apologies from Air India for the inconvenience. We're including a link to one of those videos. Air India has a terrible track record of delays and cancellations and diversions. And Air India has taken many aircraft out of service altogether, and sometimes for extended periods of time. So not all is as it appears, from Campbell Wilson.
So, Richard, let's get a bit of onto a lighter note here. A comment from Sky King V2M on the movie we discussed yesterday. He starts off, a mind-blowing aviation classic, No Highway in the Sky. Dear Geoffrey and Richard, warm greetings. I just finished watching the movie, had missed it earlier, and I must say it is absolutely mind-blowing aviation thriller. Every single aspect of the film is pure brilliance. The characterizations, the performances, the dialogues, and the atmosphere all come together as a masterclass in filmmaking. James Stewart is an actor born once in a century, truly timeless in his craft. This movie, unbelievably made in 1951, captures the tension, intellect, and emotional pulse of aviation in a way few films ever have. It keeps you gripped right till the end, leaving you both awed and deeply thoughtful. I would strongly urge and recommend every viewer of this channel not to miss this marvel. It's available on YouTube for all to watch. Thank you so much for bringing this gem to our attention. It's a cinematic experience I won't soon forget. Now, viewers, we're not going to be turning ourselves into a movie database, just letting you know.
But the movie is on my list for this weekend's watching.
It is good. It is good. Now let's get serious with this question from KD774. G'day, Richard. Around 6.2 minutes, you mentioned that the Indian authorities do not adhere to ICAO rules. Could you kindly provide a pointer to the rules which are not being followed? Thanks, Keith. Now, this was answered by Clive Delta 2 Golf, who says, Richard has stated many times at least one major departure from ICAO Annex 13 with the Indian AAIB investigation into AI 171. Here is an excerpt from Annex 13. Independence of investigations, 3.2. A state shall establish an accident investigation authority that is independent from the state aviation authorities and other entities that could interfere with the conduct or objectivity of an investigation. And Clive then says, it appears that 3 members of the investigation team are from the Indian DGCA, which is obviously a state aviation authority and therefore contravenes Annex 13 3.2. Another departure could be the rapid removal of the wreckage before other participants reportedly could view. He quotes another excerpt, 3.3. The state of occurrence shall take all reasonable measures to protect the evidence and to maintain safe custody of the aircraft and its contents for such a period as may be necessary for the purpose of an investigation. Protection of evidence shall include the preservation, by photographic or other means, of any evidence which might be removed, effaced, lost, or destroyed. Safe custody shall include protection against further damage, access by unauthorised persons, pilfering, and deterioration. Clear breaches, in my view, although one viewer did suggest some latitude is allowed to bolster the investigation unit. Richard.
Yeah. In several previous accidents internationally, ICAO and other states have criticized the following: excessive regulator involvement compromising independence, and premature wreckage clearance compromising evidence, and lack of early access for accredited investigators, and lack of transparency, and absence of a truly independent authority. And what we're seeing is not unusual. These are issues ICAO has commented on in other cases as well. And ICAO is not just simply a diplomatic body without teeth. It is a safety organization with a responsibility to the flying public. They have sent in their own observer for the India crash investigation. And if they feel the investigation is not being done properly, then they should speak up.
And for the viewers who don't know, ICAO is a United Nations body based in Montreal. Martin Trudeau, 6948. Why would not governments and corporate powers suppress information and hide truths if they are not held accountable and get away with it? If the problems are political or airline maintenance or software design faults or electrical power issues caused by water ingress or whatever was the real cause for the crash of AI 171, revealing the truth is a noble thing to do. It is being a good neighbour. It's a moral duty, and it's good for us all. Thank you, Richard and Geoffrey. Following the truth is the only way we can remain free. Richard, a very nice comment and a very profound comment.
Yeah, indeed, a very profound statement. And there are, of course, powerful interests at work. And we are working to expose any improper or illegal actions. And I'm sure you're quite right. The truth is the only way we can remain free.
So, Richard, Mr. Channel 19 says, gentlemen, even if the final report has conflict of their assessments in the end, at a bare minimum, your efforts to bring independence to the people involved and you provided professional advice and clear assessments regardless of the final report. Condolences to the families, and may peace reign in their acceptance. Others will benefit from your efforts to provide a clear and concise methods and presentations to the airline industry. May your assessments be the golden rule to truth and honesty for an industry needing advice in the face of uncertainty. These times require truth and truth tellers, you both, and your best guest provided that and more. Carry on. Another nice comment, Richard.
Yeah, but I also think of the families and friends of the victims, and of course they want answers. And they say, tell us the truth. It may be hard and very hard to hear, but we need to know. And I thought of the old saying, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. And I think the families know this, and the investigators know this, and ICAO knows this. And in fact, every competent state knows it too.
Yes. Now, while I said we're not going to be a centre for movie critiques and recommendations, there is one more. Alex R. 55557 can also recommend the excellent black and white film Cone of Silence. Best regards, Alex. Now, Alex is a Boeing 787 captain retired, but still instructing in a 787 sim. Now, I had a quick look at this movie. I'd never heard of it this afternoon, and wow, it's fantastic. Love it. And all about an investigation, and it's on YouTube. And there's a link below. If any of you want to watch it, there's a link below. You can go watch it. It's free. Richard.
Yeah, what I appreciate about the movie is how it depicts investigative bias and regulatory pressure and premature conclusions and a rush to assign a fault. And the tensions between the engineers and the regulators and the pilots is quite obvious. I can understand why Alex liked the movie and recommends it. I find some of the technical aspects are a little bit simplified or dramatized, but I think that's nature of a movie, really.
Now, Johnny Raven, 4217. A question about US military plane crash in Gander, Newfoundland, Canada. What was a judge doing comparing such reports? Should the independent audit review have been done better by a technical person as opposed to a judge? But alas, that was and is Canada. Collectively, this country, myself not included, deems that judges have some sort of mystical powers and gifts and vision the rest of us lesser Canadians do not. But I might mention, Richard, before you comment on that, one of the best pieces of investigation of any air crash ever was done by Justice Peter Mahon with the Air New Zealand Erebus crash, and he cut through to the exact cause. So that's a contrary view.
Yeah. So there are different judges around in the world. And I agree with the statement that what is a judge doing on technical matters, but a judge will call in so-called subject matter experts. And a judge is there to ensure the legal process is adhered to. And a judge can evaluate whether the rules of evidence are being followed or not. And a judge, of course, is not a subject matter expert on aviation or aircraft regulation or design or manufacture or operations or maintenance. So a judge must rely on experts in those fields. And there are usually more than one, and sometimes conflicting opinions from the subject matter experts. So it's not an easy matter.
No, it's not. Richard, Knight 6831. He raises another interesting crash, and that was that of a Itavia McDonnell Douglas DC-915. It was Flight 870. And an international investigation blamed a bomb in the area of the aft starboard lavatory, while Italy blamed a missile, with people then somehow deciding that either the French had downed the plane while targeting a Libyan military jet in an attempt to kill Muammar Gaddafi, or French carrier jets from an aircraft carrier, Clemenceau, shot the flight down. Do you know much about that one, Richard?
Yeah, well, I looked into that one. The technical cause has never officially and conclusively been established. And that's after decades of investigations and court rulings and expert witnesses and subject matter experts. And there are still two major hypotheses that remain. And one of those was effectively endorsed by the Italian courts. And these rulings from the courts stated that the aircraft was shot down by a missile fired by another aircraft. Not exactly very specific. And the victim of an air battle involving NATO aircraft and a Libyan MiG-23. Again, non-specific which NATO aircraft, but no military organization has ever admitted any involvement. And there has never been an ICAO-style final accident report, which would attribute a cause for the accident. And I think the whole incident is perhaps worthy of an entire episode, frankly.
And another one that's we are going to devote a bigger episode to is from Ian, 1959. And he raised the one about the Boeing 767 of Lauder-Air. And that was a highly controversial crash. And there's a lot of twists and turns in that one, Richard. Now, Ian has raised it. We are going to look into it and produce a full answer for him on that. And that will come in the next couple of days. And maybe we can combine those two together into a wider episode. And, you know, one of the interesting things here, Richard, is our viewers are bringing to our attention particular crashes that they're focused on, that they know personally about, that we've overlooked, which adds to the argument of why we are pursuing Air India 171.
Indeed. And there are obviously a lot of disputed investigations.
Yeah. So look, Richard, let's finish with Mr. Hootsie. Geoffrey and Richard, sirs, I don't only salute your deep knowledge, but even more the way you explain to us viewers. That's nice.
That's a lovely comment, and many thanks for your kind comment, Mr. Hootsie.
Yeah. So, viewers, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much indeed, Richard, for your work on this particular episode and all the research on Campbell Wilson.
You're very welcome.
And viewers, we'll be back tomorrow with another special guest, which will be fascinating, as our other special guest was fascinating, Kevin Sullivan. And so we do hope you'll tune in tomorrow. But please subscribe to us, please like us, please keep those wonderful comments coming and those great questions coming. We do appreciate them very much indeed. And please do enjoy your weekend wherever you are in the world. Take care.